Swirling storms and ever-shifting colors that stretch far beyond the horizon. A bottomless world. Its lower depths are a realm of crushing pressure and endless darkness, where lightning rips through clouds the size of continents. Yet, far above the chaos lies a rare and fragile refuge. A narrow layer in the upper atmosphere where the air is thin but breathable, carried by roaring winds and brushed by sunlight. Welcome to Bespin. As a gas giant, the planet Bespin had no landmass or solid surface. It was made up of countless atmospheric layers formed from various gases. The planet was discovered more than 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, and surveys soon revealed vast amounts of Tibanna gas in its atmosphere. Tibanna was vital for many key technologies due to its capacity to store immense amounts of energy. Since its development, hyperspace technology relied on Tibanna as one of its most efficient coolants. Larger blaster weapons and turbolasers used processed Tibanna gas that was energized to increase their energy output and therefore the damage they inflicted. By the time of this discovery, there were already many gas giants known to have Tibanna gas layers in their atmosphere. But the always high demand of this resource made every new source into a promising business opportunity or important asset to the military complex of every larger organization. Shortly after the outbreak of the Mandalorian Wars, Bespin was auctioned off on a planetary auction for newly discovered planets. Soon after, an organization from the Empress Theta system established an official Tibanna mining operation on the planet. The resource was intended to strengthen the Republic's campaign against the Mandalorians. However, the facility's remote location and limited defenses left it vulnerable. Mandalorian forces eventually discovered the site and, in a swift assault, destroyed the floating platforms, effectively ending the operation. Despite its valuable resources, Bespin's remote location and lack of direct access to major hyperspace routes created both economic and security challenges, hindering the planet's further development. It would take another 2 millennia before serious colonization efforts began on the planet. Rising demand for Tibanna gas spurred new mining operations around which small communities emerged. Proposals for further development included ambitious plans for vast floating cities in the upper atmosphere. But the upheaval of the new Sith Wars soon engulfed the galaxy, leaving most of these ideas unrealized for many centuries. The remote world of Bespin was largely spared from direct involvement in the galaxy's conflict during this 1,000-year span of wars between Sith forces and the Jedi. In the final decade, however, during the conflict later known as the Light and Darkness War, a defected Jedi Master turned Sith Lord led a devastating campaign against the Republic. His followers, the Brotherhood of Darkness, devastated numerous systems while tightening the grip on the core worlds. As part of this strategy, Sith forces targeted Bespin, destroying most of its settlements and halting the Tibanna gas production, in an effort to disrupt the Republic's supply lines. In the aftermath, the planet was largely abandoned and the Tibanna industry shifted its focus to more easily accessible gas giants. Approximately 400 years before the Battle of Yavin, Ecclesis Fig, an entrepreneur and explorer from Karelia, mapped new hyperspace routes in the Greater Yavin, at the far end of the Karelian trade spine, one of the galaxy's major hyperspace lanes. His companies established colonies and extracted resources from multiple planets in the region, using these newly discovered routes to facilitate trade and profit. Having learned of Bespin and its Tibanna-rich atmosphere, Fig successfully charted a previously unknown route to the planet that was faster and safer than previously established connections, which had contributed to the failure of prior mining operations. A survey of the lower layers of the Tibanna-rich atmosphere revealed a natural process that left part of the gas in a unique, spin-sealed state. This would greatly reduce the need for costly refining, and Fig became even more determined to develop the planet. Despite benefiting from the newly discovered trade routes, his initial attempts at extraction proved unprofitable. Seeking a solution, Fig studied the early plans for large floating structures from Bespin's first era of colonization and, building on these ideas, commissioned the construction of the planet's first permanent floating settlement, later called Cloud City. The circular structure of Cloud City spanned approximately 370 levels and measured over 16 kilometers in diameter. It was home to a population exceeding 5 million inhabitants. About half of the city's population consisted of Ognots, an industrial species brought to Bespin to assist with the construction of Cloud City. After its completion, they were allowed to stay and took up work in the gas refineries and other essential facilities needed to maintain the floating metropolis. The remaining populace was primarily composed of humans and other humanoid species from a wide range of worlds, many of whom sought to establish enterprises within the prosperous new colony. Extending beneath the main structure, a narrow central stilt reached kilometers deep into the clouds. This shaft housed the city's engines, thousands of repulsor lifts and tractor beams that stabilized the platform and kept it afloat. Although not designed for long-distance travel, the city's navigation systems were connected to a network of weather sensors, allowing it to adjust its position and avoid weather that could interfere with its stability or operations if necessary. The upper levels of Cloud City were devoted to tourism, featuring luxurious hotels and extravagant casinos. Establishing tourism had been an idea of the city's founder, Ecclesis Fig, who sought to distract the Republic's attention from the true extent of the mining operations taking place below. Beneath the residential and administrative districts, around level 150, lay the area known as Port Town. There, industrial ports and privately owned complexes operated alongside shadowy cantinas and underground casinos. Far removed from the high living standards of the upper levels, smugglers, information brokers, and other criminals found refuge. Many were drawn to the illicit activities sometimes facilitated by the city's own administration on the levels below Port Town, where mining and refinery facilities officially processed standard Tibanna gas, but covertly handled the highly restricted spin-sealed variant as well. While tourism and the export of refined Tibanna gas were profitable enterprises in their own right, it was the illegal trade in spin-sealed weapons-grade Tibanna gas that transformed Cloud City into the gold mine it became. Expanding upon the mining operations based in Cloud City, numerous smaller platforms were constructed across Bespin to extract Tibanna gas. These installations were more flexible, capable of adjusting their positions to follow the ever-shifting Tibanna concentrations within the gas giant's atmosphere. Most of these outposts lacked their own refining facilities, making them dependent on the processing centers within the great floating metropolis. Over time, as the Tabana trade and tourism industry flourished, numerous smaller platforms of various purposes were constructed around Cloud City. Floating hotels and luxurious spa platforms drifted through the upper atmosphere, offering therapeutic cloud baths and breathtaking views to wealthy visitors. Below Cloud City, the Ognaut population built their own platform from leftover materials from the city's construction. However, most Ognauts continue to live within the city itself, as their platform, named the Ognaut Surface, was far too small to accommodate more than a fraction of their community. Although the businesses on Bespin managed to avoid drawing significant attention over the following centuries, some competitors saw an opportunity. With the construction of Tibanopolis, they sought to replicate Cloud City's success by building another floating metropolis near equal in size to its model. However, it soon became evident that Tibanopolis would struggle to rival Cloud City, and the enterprises based in Bespin's second major floating city failed to truly take off. More than 3 centuries after the era of Ecclesis Fig and the early colonization of Bespin, a splinter group from the Jedi Academy on Coruscant established a mobile academy aboard a starship, devoted to teaching an alternative philosophy. Seeking seclusion, they concealed their vessel within the serene cloud layers of Bespin, isolated far away from the bustling mining operations and beyond the reach of the Jedi Council that had cast them out. Only a few years later, the Separatist crisis erupted into the Clone Wars that would soon engulf much of the galaxy. As the droid army of the Separatists fought against the Republic's clone troops on many planets, rising anti-droid views in the Republic's population meant hard times for worker droids in some cases. Fearing deactivation and deconstruction, the droid workforce of the independent gas refining platform Beskars 3 hijacked the installation in an unprecedented case and hid it in the deeper layers of Bespin's atmosphere. Despite Bespin's declaration of neutrality at the outbreak of the Clone Wars, the planet was attacked by Separatist forces within the first year of the conflict. The Wingguard, Bespin's local security force, was quickly overwhelmed by the invading droid army. Seeking to seize control of Tabana gas production and disrupt Republic supply lines, the Separatists destroyed many independently operating gas platforms and occupied Cloud City. It took a series of smaller engagements and precision strikes for the Republic to regain control of the remote gas giant. But by then, Bespin's mining operations had suffered severe losses. At the end of the Clone Wars, Bespin came under Imperial control but was largely left to its own affairs by the New Order. The reconstruction of the mining industry was carried out by local authorities and private interests, once again guided by the principle of attracting as little Imperial attention as possible. Over time, this relative autonomy drew increasing numbers of criminals seeking refuge from Imperial jurisdiction to the remote world. And conditions in the lower levels of Cloud City steadily deteriorated. 17 years after the Clone Wars, the Mandalorian crime lord Chopar Notimo and his mercenaries attempted to seize control of Cloud City. He was able to force the Bespin Wingguard into retreat from parts of the city and took an Imperial senator hostage. Only after unexpected assistance from off-world arrived and Notimo was killed, were the Wingguards able to drive out the remaining members of the criminal gang. 3 years after the destruction of the first Death Star, members of the Rebel Alliance fled to Bespin following the fall of their main base on Hoth to Imperial forces. The Empire, having anticipated their movements, arrived at Cloud City shortly before them. To prevent an Imperial occupation, the city's administrator struck a deal with the Empire to lure the rebels into a trap. The plan, however, ultimately failed, and nearly the entire rebel group managed to escape. In the aftermath, Imperial leadership dishonored the agreement with Cloud City's administrator. After more than 2 decades of autonomy, Bespin was invaded by Imperial forces. Neither the Bespin Wing Guard nor the supporting rebel teams were able to prevent the Empire from taking control of Cloud City. The Imperials swiftly ceased most Tibanna gas operations and established a permanent garrison on the planet. Far from the central authority of the Galactic Empire, the newly appointed Imperial Governor of Bespin soon became corrupt, exploiting the planet's lucrative industries for personal gain. He did everything to push profits and put more money aside for himself. Working conditions in Cloud City deteriorated rapidly, particularly for the Ognaut population, who were regarded by the occupiers as little more than forced laborers. Only months after the Imperial occupation began, the Ognauts rose in revolt. They planted explosives near key infrastructure and held the city hostage, threatening to destroy it. All attempts to defuse the bombs or suppress the uprising failed, and with covert assistance from agents of the Rebel Alliance, the governor and his administration were forced to abandon Bespin. Although Imperial forces remained stationed on the planet, they fell into disorganization, and Cloud City returned to limited self-governance, improving conditions for local workers and businesses. With Imperial control weakened, the remote world of Bespin once again became a target for criminal organizations. Underground casinos and other illicit enterprises began to resurface in the industrial levels of Cloud City. Shortly after the Ognaut uprising, a group of pirates raided a mining operation on the planet. The Imperial troops stationed at the facility were quickly overwhelmed as the raiders seized a sizable quantity of Tibanna gas. News of the ongoing attack prompted an immediate response from Imperial High Command. Determined to secure the valuable resources, a strike force was dispatched to Bespin, driving off the pirates and re-establishing control over the mining facilities. At the same time, the Rebel Alliance launched several raids on Bespin to steal Tibanna gas from the Empire and use it to support their war effort. Although Imperial forces had strengthened defenses around the valuable gas platforms, the rebels' hit-and-run tactics proved effective, allowing them to overwhelm the garrisons in a series of swift strikes. Despite these successes, it was only after the destruction of the second Death Star at the Battle of Endor that a full campaign to liberate the planet was undertaken. With the help of sympathizers on Cloud City who provided detailed intelligence on Imperial defenses, a rebel fleet engaged the occupying forces in the upper atmosphere while a strike team descended into the city to confront the garrison directly. After an intense battle, Bespin was freed from Imperial control and the Rebel Alliance secured its Tibanna gas supplies for their ongoing struggle to restore the Republic. Rebel control, however, proved short-lived. Only a few months later, the crime-ridden Cloud City fell under the control of Zobra the Hutt, who sought to transform the remote colony into a haven for gamblers and tourists. While the Alliance was occupied elsewhere, an Imperial remnant faction under Trioculus, a former slave master from the planet Kessel, established new mining operations across the planet to resume Tibanna gas extraction, gradually encroaching on Hutt-controlled territory. This expansion jeopardized Zobra's ambitions as the renewed imperial presence drove away his criminal associates, smugglers, and the wealthy clientele he sought to exploit. The Hutt offered a deal to Traoculus in a personal meeting. But as the imperial leader refused, Zobra took him captive and ordered his henchmen to attack the imperial troops. The Hutt's forces, together with the Bespin wing guard, began openly clashing with the Imperials and managed to hold their ground, maintaining control over Cloud City and the surrounding platforms. Despite his earlier successes, Zobra's enterprises on Bespin ultimately failed to prosper. In a desperate attempt to revive his fortunes, he assembled a fleet of mercenaries and launched attacks on nearby amusement facilities and tourist attractions, hoping that eliminating the competition would allow Cloud City to flourish. Shortly after the first raid, however, Zobra's flagship was intercepted by Imperial forces. He was captured during the engagement and Traoculus was freed. Zobra's criminal organization was forced to withdraw from Bespin. Traoculus' rule over the planet, however, proved short-lived as the Rebel Alliance, now in the form of the New Republic, returned to liberate the remote gas giant once again. In the aftermath, Cloud City was formally entrusted to the Ognaughts, the same industrious people who had helped construct it centuries earlier. Business on Bespin flourished once more, and the planet became a major supplier of Tibanna gas to the New Republic. 4 years later, however, this renewed prosperity came to an abrupt end when Imperial forces returned, seizing control of Cloud City and its gas facilities. The Empire exploited Bespin's resources to fuel one of its final and most destructive campaigns against the New Republic. Following a decisive Republic victory only a few months later, Imperial forces withdrew from the gas giant, bringing an end to yet another occupation. Criminal elements once again spread throughout the lower and mid-levels of Cloud City. In the year 12 after the Battle of Yavin, a powerful crime syndicate threatened to seize control of the entire city and its lucrative industries. When New Republic agents uncovered links between the syndicate's activities and yet another Imperial remnant faction, they coordinated with the Bespin wing guard to eliminate the threat. A series of small skirmishes broke out across the city, during which key figures of both the criminal organization and the Imperial agents supporting them were neutralized, ultimately restoring order to Cloud City once more. Over the following decades, even as wars engulfed much of the wider galaxy, Bespin remained largely untouched by major conflict. Nevertheless, crime and Tibanna gas theft persisted, keeping the Wingguard's forces constantly occupied. Over the decades, growing dissatisfaction with New Republic policies and a lack of consistent support fueled separatist sentiment on the remote world. However, shortly before the outbreak of the Second Galactic Civil War, Bespin ultimately chose to side with the New Republic. Fortunately, the planet was once again spared from direct involvement in the fighting. After Darth Krait's galactic empire seized control of most of the galaxy decades later, hard times fell upon Bespin. Under the new Imperial regime, the Tibanna gas trade was heavily restricted, with independent operations banned or forced to shut down. As a result, most of the planet's private enterprises went out of business. Conditions on Cloud City deteriorated rapidly, and many of its inhabitants left in search of better opportunities elsewhere. The once thriving metropolis fell into disarray, and large sections of the city were eventually abandoned. With the other large structures like Tibanopolis long deserted and countless smaller platforms decommissioned, Cloud City was reduced to a faint shadow of its former glory, drifting over the endless clouds of Bespin.